Wiegraf Folles commands the Corpse Brigade, Ivalice's most hunted rebels. The nobles call him a traitor. The crown calls him a terrorist. But when Ramza Beoulve faces him at the Sandrat's Siege, he doesn't see a monster. Ramza sees a man who speaks with conviction, acts with restraint, and hates the violence his cause demands. This man isn't a villain. This man is a soldier the kingdom used, discarded, and then hunted when he refused to die quietly. Before the Corpse Brigade, Wiegraf Folles was a knight, not of noble blood, but of the people. He fought in the 50 Years' War. He bled for Ivalice. He believed the kingdom would honor that sacrifice. It did not. And in Chapter 1 of Final Fantasy Tactics, we watch the last of his faith in that kingdom burn away. One betrayal, one death, one impossible choice at a time. But to understand how deep that fall goes, we need to go back to where it started. Chapter 1 reveals Wiegraf's origins in fragments, but those fragments tell you everything. He commanded the Deadmen, a unit of commoners who fought in the 50 Years' War. Not conscripts, not mercenaries, volunteers. Men who believed Ivalice was worth dying for. While noble houses commanded from war tents and returned to their estates, the dead men bled in the mud. They held the lines no knight would touch. They died in battles history wouldn't remember. Wiegraf wasn't born into nobility, but he carried himself like a knight. Disciplined, honorable, unshakable in his belief that service would be rewarded. It was not. When the war ended, the crown dismissed the dead men without ceremony. No land, no title, no pension. The nobles returned to their estates. The soldiers returned to poverty. One of Wiegraf's men put it plainly. We fought for our kingdom at peril of our very lives. Yet the moment the war ended, they turned us out into the streets, he recounts. There is a bitterness in that fact. Wiegraf didn't rebel out of hatred. He rebelled because the system he bled for never valued him, and that disillusionment would cost him everything. It started the moment the war ended. After the 50 Years' War ended, Wiegraf found them in the streets of Lasalia. Former soldiers sleeping in alleys, unpaid conscripts begging for bread, widows selling what little they had left, farmers whose land had been seized for noble debts. The crown had discarded them. Wiegraf gave them purpose. He formed the Corpse Brigade from these scattered lives. Not thieves or bandits, but veterans with nothing left to lose and no one left to protect them. When the brigade seized noble supply caravans and redistributed grain to starving villages, the ruling houses branded them outlaws. In the slums and ruins, they were the only justice the common people had ever seen. Wiegraf didn't beg the nobility for reform. He took it from their hands. The brigade fought not just the crown, but the system that reduced men to labor, then ground that labor to dust. Still, Wiegraf held to his code. He rejected cruelty. He condemned opportunism. He drew clear lines even in rebellion. When Gustav Margriff kidnapped Marquis Elmdor without his consent, Wiegraf tracked him to the Zeklos desert and executed him. Not for vengeance, but for principle. Saying craven methods serve not our ends. Even as a rebel, Wiegraf tried to be a knight. He believed a just cause demanded just means. But forces far darker than any noble house would test that belief to its breaking point. The first test came from within. Gustav Margriff fought beside Wiegraf in the 50 Years' War. Both men watched the kingdom discard its veterans. Both joined the Corpse Brigade. But where Wiegraf held to his code, Gustav saw only opportunity. When Gustav kidnapped Marquis Elmdor, a war hero and powerful noble, he called it a strategy. Hold the Marquis for ransom, fund the brigade, win by any means. Wiegraf called it a betrayal. By the time Ramza reaches the Sandrat Sietch, the choice is made. Gustav lies dead in the sand. The Marquis stands unharmed. Wiegraf waits with his sword drawn and no apology in his eyes. In that moment, Wiegraf draws the line he will not cross. He will not let desperation corrupt his cause. He will not become the bandit the nobility accuses him of being. He will be a knight, even in rebellion. But every line he draws costs him. Gustav is dead. The brigade fractures. Allies question his judgment. Enemies close in from every side. And in the shadows, something darker watches a man clinging to honor in a world that has none left to give. In that darkness, one faint light remained. Milleuda Folles was Wiegraf's younger sister. She fought beside him in the war. She led beside him in rebellion. When commanders questioned his orders, she made them listen. She believed the nobility was not just corrupt, it was a lie. Bloodlines were fiction. Worth came from action, not ancestry. On the battlefield at Lanalian Plateau, she faced Ramza and his company. Outnumbered, outmatched, offered surrender. She refused. "We are not chattel," she shouted. "We are humans, no less than you." They cut her down where she stood. At the windmill shed, a messenger delivered the news. Wiegraf stood silent as the millstone turned, grinding, endless, stone on stone. Something in him fractured with each rotation. The discipline that had defined him became cold calculation. The restraint that guided him became ruthless efficiency. He stopped fighting for the living and started fighting for the dead. And the dead do not ask for mercy. After Milleuda's death, something inside Wiegraf begins to shift. The speeches stopped. The lines blurred. His cause, once built on honor and reform, now moved beneath the weight of grief and exhaustion. When Ramza next encounters him, Wiegraf's words are colder, measured, but no longer hopeful. He speaks not of justice, but of futility. "We're not so different," he tells Ramza. "Only your name protects you." This moment captures Wiegraf's growing disillusionment. He no longer believes the world can be changed by principle alone. He sees noble-born idealists like Ramza as sheltered exceptions, not allies. To Wiegraf, the system isn't broken, it's rigged. His rebellion wasn't crushed by force. It was eroded by a truth he could no longer ignore. That justice has no place in a world ruled by birthright. Still, there's a sense that he hasn't fully crossed over. He continues to fight with discipline. He honors the dead. He refuses to harm innocents when possible. But his decisions grow heavier. His voice grows tired. The Wiegraf we see near the end of Chapter 1 is not the same man who led the dead men. He hasn't abandoned his ideals, but he no longer believes they're enough. And when a cause loses its hope, all that's left is the fight. By the end of Chapter 1, Wiegraf is gone. He vanished after Fort Ziegden fell, his fate unknown. What remains? The wreckage of the Corpse Brigade, the silence where Milleuda once stood, and a question with no answer. Was he wrong? He fought for justice, not power. for dignity, not vengeance. He killed only when forced. He refused to prey on the weak. He held to a code in a world that rewarded those who abandoned it. And he lost everything. The kingdom named him traitor. The nobility called him terrorist. Trace the path he walked. Listen to the words he spoke. What you find is not madness. You find a man trying to hold on to his soul as the world strips it away. Ramza was shielded by his name. Delita was forged by loss. Wiegraf was simply abandoned. His story does not end in glory. It ends in ash, silence, and an empty fortress. And perhaps that is the lesson. Wiegraf Folles was not meant to survive his ideals. He was meant to show us what it costs to stand for something when no one stands with you.